The greatest thing from Quebec since Celine Dion and GSP.
A pair of siblings.
A couple of stellar young men.
Two brothers.
These two young men. Two siblings. The hard-hitting pair represent Canada.
Welcome to Thinkin Bros. My name is Chris.
And I'm Alex.
We're your favorite corner stores philosophers trying to figure out life one conundrum at a time. And today we're going to be talking about passions within reason, which was around the top 5 in each of the Very Bad Wizards top 5 books, or like top 10 books or something like that. As you can see, we're getting tropical. I switched it up from the black shirt. That's the main indicator. Then there's also the beach behind us.
We're on a philosopher's retreat.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, what's up with this book? Do you have any structured way to approach it?
I guess the best quick explanation of it is having read half of it, or less than half of it.
Yeah.
It seems like an attempt to account for emotions, basically, in decision making and in people's actions. Why did emotions emerge? What's their purpose? And how do they fit in with rational decision making in general?
Exactly. Now, it's not exactly what I thought it would be. Do you get what I'm saying?
No, I didn't know. I have no idea what you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, that's a very fair statement. I guess it's not like he really gets into emotions that fast. He talks about, first of all, it's more mathematical than I thought, which is nice.
He's a economist.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense then.
Professor of economics.
Okay. Well, anyway, you have the structure out there or what?
I have a bunch of notes.
Nice.
That's what I have.
Let's go.
Okay. So I guess if we want to try to explain the book, one important aspect of it that he keeps coming back to, because I guess it pops up all around our lives and is an instance where we have to make a decision where emotions are invoked. So that thing is called commitment problem. So commitment problems are, I guess, situations where you're unsure about the intentions and the character and the future actions of someone. And so it's hard to make a decision because the ideal outcome can't be guaranteed if you act ideally, because you don't know what's going on in the other person's head. And the first example he gives, he gets it from another author. Another author coined it. And that author's example is kidnapper.
Oh, right. So someone kidnaps someone and then the kidnapper doesn't want to kill the other person.
Gets cold feet, is what he said.
Yeah. So he wants to release him, but is there any way that he can ensure that the future actions of the person they're going to release are not going to hurt the kidnapper, aka just report him to the police? Now, for those who have seen the series You on Netflix, that's exactly, one, what happens, and two, the way that it's resolved is the proposed solution to this, correct? So essentially, one thing the kidnapper could do is get some incriminating evidence of his own about the kidnappee, and then release him with the threat that they're going to release information if kidnappee does decide to report him to the police. And what's interesting about that is it's all in the threat. And that's I think the main point we get from the first 100 pages, right? It's all in the threat of, I'm going to do it. And honestly, it just feels like playing a game.
Life does.
Yeah, well, yeah. Because it's not the most rational person who would win, because as we're going to see here, especially mathematically, rationality doesn't always get you the best outcome of a situation. But rationality as an argument, right, or like as a premise, also with feelings as a premise, may get you to kind of an optimal place. So yeah, obviously the preferred outcome of the kidnapper isn't to, get reported to the police and while they're banging at his door, release the public information about the kidnappee and get his revenge. Right? There's no world where he wants to do that or it's profitable for him as a rational being, and both know that. So the mere threat is kind of contains all the power, and that's also, I guess the recurring theme with commitment problems is without without a solution, the situation can sort of go in two ways: favoring the kidnapper, which would be, I guess, releasing the person and having literally zero consequences. But that's not. It favors both. Well, actually, no. It would be killing the. Yeah. That's what it would be. So the preferred solution, which bears no consequence on his life for the kidnapper, is just killing the kidnappee, which is, I guess, not an option. If his feet were a little hotter, though, we might have a conversation there. But yeah. And the preferred solution for the kidnappee is just getting released, right? Because then he doesn't care. He can even report the kidnapper to the police. But then both compromise, right? And both don't get the ideal solution because, well, the kidnapper now has some information on the kidnappee that the kidnappee wouldn't like the kidnapper to have on him. And then the kidnapper is always stressed, I guess, the rest of his life that he's going to get revealed to the police. But considering the situation, the fact that the kidnapper has cold feet and the fact that the kidnappee has already been kidnapped, right, and is there, that's a pretty damn good solution. So it's sort of not the best thing that can happen to either, but the best thing that can happen to both. Exactly, and it's the same mathematical principle behind the prisoner's dilemma, right? Yes, yeah. The optimal solution, I guess, or I don't know if you would call it optimal, because here you have to choose your words carefully, because it's not optimal for either of them, but it's optimal for the group, right? So maybe we go over it quickly. Yeah, well, what is it? The prisoner's dilemma? Yeah. I was on other commitment problems. Okay, but okay, let me just quickly. Right, so two prisoners. The judge has enough evidence to convict them of a minor crime, but if they admit to a major crime, they might anyway get a reduced sentence. If the other doesn't also admit to it, well, not admit to it, sorry, report to the other one. So the other of the two prisoners. So if both defect or if both snitch, in fact, they both get a pretty bad sentence, right? Is it the worst they can get? If both defect. So, okay, if the other of them talk, each one gets a year in prison. If one of them talks and the other doesn't, the one who didn't talk is going to get 20 years in prison and the other is going to get 0. And if both talk, they're going to get 10 years in prison. Is that right? Something like that? Something like that, but... Okay. So the optimal solution for the group is always for both people to kind of self-sacrifice and do this leap of faith. But for that to happen, really both have to do it. Because as you can guess, it's a pretty large advantage to defect when the other hasn't defected. By which I mean confess or snitch or whatever. Oh, okay. So if both confess, they get 5 each. If one remains silent and the other talks, one gets 20 and the other 0. And if they both don't talk, they get a year each. So, yeah, then he gets into some really interesting stuff. Okay, you were going to get actually to some other stuff, right? Well, other commitment problems. Yeah, but I think with
with this, I mean,
It's a
second
framework,
example.
right? It's the same thing. Prenuptial agreements are one of those optimal solutions for the group.
Business agreements or like business deals where
Yeah.
people have to compromise because they're not sure about, I don't know, I guess the honesty of the other person.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, again, the threat being there is all that it takes, or not even all that it takes, but all that kind of keeps this balance of both not wanting to be mean to the other. Because once one of them does the bad thing, and I'm talking in framework types, right? I'm not talking about anything specific. It's already not profitable for the other to retaliate. Right? It's the same thing as like two guys sizing each other up in a bar. It's like the threat of, okay, who is the bigger guy, who maybe knows how to fight, is the entire clash of power. Because once the fight starts, it's actually not really profitable for either, because both might get into legal trouble, both are going to get injured, both are going to blah, blah, blah. Right? So it's the same thing with the example of the toads croaking. We'll get to that in any case.
I think that's the exact point, that once the other person does the bad thing, it is profitable for the other person to do the bad thing.
Well, that we get into that later with maybe reputation, but it's never rational. What I'm saying is it's not rational.
To do a good thing is never rational in this situation.
No.
The way he explains it is this way. So for you, let's say it's me and you playing, or not playing. The two options for me are either you cheated, in which case I get 20 years if I cooperate, and I only get 5 if I don't.
Yeah, but
so I should.
We're past that, because in the prisoner's dilemma, you don't know the information about the other guy.
No, okay, but if you cooperate, I have 2 options. Either I don't, I also cooperate with you, and then I get a year, or I defect and I get 0 and you get 20. In both situations, it's always rational to defect.
I understand. But what I'm saying is about the commitment problem, which is a little bit different because it has the long-term kind of maintaining of that relationship. In the prisoner's dilemma, once it's done, it's kind of done, right? You make the decision and you get the years. But in the other one, the retaliation isn't rational. So you remember the example of the fence, right? So one farmer is growing wheat and the other farmer is growing cows. And then, so the farmer who's growing wheat doesn't want the cows to eat his wheat.
Figure that out.
Now, it would cost the cow herder $200, right, to build a fence around his property. And if the cows were to eat the wheat, it would make the wheat grower lose $1,000 in crops. And then it would take the wheat grower $2,000 to sue the guy with the cows. Correct? Now, as a commitment problem, the guy with the wheat has to appear irrational for the threat of suing to work, because it's not a rational thing to lose more money on the court of law than like on the crops. Anyway, like his net is going to be less than 0 if he does so.
In a situation where he sues, I mean, he'll just pay $2,000 and be down in money. Yeah,
so he'll be down in money. And that threat should make the guy with the cows spend $200 on fences. But I guess just in both situations, if you're nice, you're not rational, and if you're not nice, you're not rational.
You are.
If you're not nice, you are rational.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. Then the optimal thing to do, right? Because in my head, rational is good, but in this situation, actually, well, in many situations in life, apparently, the optimal thing, and I guess when we're saying optimal, is we're saying for society to function, essentially.
Yeah.
For society to function, and for the duo of the people in the commitment problem. So, for example, in a marriage, the compromise is the optimal solution for both of them to be better off. That's what's characteristic of these commitment problems.
It's actually important, I think, to define rationality.
Yeah, well, he kind of does, but
but it's hard to define. And I'm going to find the page.
But I guess in a purely self-interested way, it's just a mathematical calculation of your profits, no? Like your individual profits and how to maximize them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think I remember them. So the first sort of definition he discusses is like behaving in a rational way is behaving in the way you want to behave. But if you take that to like a very small time frame, in the moment that you acted off of emotions, you wanted to act that way. So it was rational. So just everything is rational because you acted that way. So you clearly wanted to act that way. Right? And then the second definition is doing things that will advantage you, right? It's like self-interested or things that go towards your goals. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So in this decision making, at least his claim is that a lot of philosophers and people have all been talking about the self-interest model to try to explain people's behavior in these situations. The self-interest model is roughly people act efficiently in the pursuit of self-interest. That's the self-interest model. People do what's best for them. He presents the commitment model, which is his new and better solution, I guess. Seemingly irrational behavior is sometimes explained by emotional predispositions that help solve commitment problems. So as we've been alluding to, in these commitment problems, which happen often in life, the best thing to do is seemingly irrational. And his argument is that emotions evolved as a solution to these commitment problems to push the scales on one side so that we make that decision.
Well, again, evolved as a solution is a pretty risky thing to say because then we're going to get to how random evolution really is.
How random the specific signs are. Yeah.
The specific signs. Not just how randomly it happens and when it's actually good. It's filtered for. Anyway. Okay, so is what you said also the difference between this self-interest evolutionary model and group interest or whatever?
No, not quite.
Not quite. Okay, but in both, I think both, he does say that both are pretty good theories, right?
Individual selection and group selection?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, but I think group selection has been neglected and sort of left in the margins.
Yeah, so again, if it were individual selections, everyone would act perfectly rationally, I'm guessing. And if it's group selection, then you would act in the tit-for-tat manner. So, for example, in repeated prisoner's dilemmas, you would always start by cooperating, and then the next step, you would do the same thing as your opponent or cooperator did on the previous step. So it's just like kind of justice, embodied justice.
I guess that does go into group selections, sort of. I think the example specifically he uses though is like the doorhead ant. Literally, there are ants that their life is going up to the hole in the ant hill, and putting their heads up because their heads are sort of like grow flat as a whole cover.
Oh,
And
wow. I think I completely missed this. I don't know where you read that.
I hope I didn't make that up, but it's just like sacrificing yourself for the group, and it's definitely not like advantageous for that ant specifically, but evolutionarily, the group is going to benefit a lot. Like nothing can get in then.
Yeah, and a lot of the theories of individual selection, he gives counterexamples as these pure acts of altruism. Like, for example, some guy was dragging a woman in a parking lot with a shotgun or something, and 3 guys just rushed that man and they died. What a sad story. But
Hate how you say that.
So a lot of these theories about self-interest and purely rational behavior are contradicted by pure acts like that. But then again, he's very fair to, reputation and emotion, and he kind of always weakens these claims by saying, look, they might have just maybe not in this specific example, but he would say something like that. Like, they might have just wanted the recognition, and therefore it ultimately became a rational choice to do that. Correct? Right? He always puts the sentiment of, okay, what if I am recognized for this good thing I am doing on the scale, which isn't to say that rushing a man with a shotgun is probably a bad idea. I'm probably imagining a shotgun. It was probably just a normal gun, but it looks cooler in my head. So the weight of that is still there, but what is added to it is the sentiment of, okay, what if I get recognized for this and I'm the
Oh wait, is that what you were saying? I
the city
think
hero.
Recognized as a hero.
But again, he didn't say these things for this example, but he often says this, in the sense that the emotions themselves are rational arguments. Well, are arguments that go against rationality. And by
Right.
against, I mean just like in the equation of what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I would have the first thing I would have said is not I'm going to be recognized as a hero. It's more like, this is unjust. Let me solve this.
Well, maybe that's you.
I don't think that if you do rush in to help a person being dragged with a gun, it won't be, let me think about the future, I'm going to be recognized. It would be like, oh my God, they're about to die.
First of all, I think it depends on who you are, but yeah, sure, yeah.
Okay.
Let's end with the 3. Well, again, we might have steps before that. But let's end with the 3 things about evolution, right? The 3 that.
That's literally the end of where we got to, though.
I know, but it's also the last 40 pages almost.
I guess.
Okay, so also he goes through these really interesting calculations about cooperators and defectors, right? I hope the terms are clear by now, in these commitment problems. And he kind of simplifies society to just kind of this binary way of functioning, where there are people who cooperate with people or go with the tit for tat strategy, so they're kind of just in a sense, and people who always defect. Right?
It's not the tit for tat strategy. It's just they cooperate. They're cooperating.
Oh, right, sorry. Pure cooperators and purely defectors. He does a bunch of interesting calculations, and he adds to it that, if there's sometimes if there's a price for discovering that people are defectors or cooperators, it's always profitable for cooperators to pay it if defectors are in a 25% or lesser minority.
If there's
25%
or more
or
defectors.
Oh, or more, correct, yeah. In society, then it costs for people to sacrifice the resources they're going to get from the prisoner's dilemma kind of thing to identify these defectors.
In like a specific example he gives with made up numbers he makes up. It's not like in society when defectors are more than 25%, then cooperators should always pay the price to check.
And again, yeah, it depends on the cost that they would get from, like, how the prisoner's dilemma is arranged in terms of benefits, and then also what is the cost of discovering the other as a defector. So the example he gives is like, if cooperators, if they both cooperate, get $4, for example, or 4 units, and if it costs them 1 unit to identify a defector and know how to play against them, instead of every time getting 0 while the defector gets 6 units, if there is more than 25% of defectors in society, it's worth for them to pay 1 unit to identify them, something like that.
Yeah, and what we're talking about is if so it's simplified in many, many ways. It's simplified in the sense that all commitment problems are the same. They're a sort of simplified version of the prisoner's dilemma. Then 2, people have an identity. They always act either in a cooperator way or a defector way, and those people are going to keep acting that way no matter what.
Which is pretty much reality, because there's good and evil. Okay.
You wouldn't forgot his name. Buddhist guy to catch you saying that.
Oh, Bodhidharma.
You went to Cat Williams?
Well, you said cat.
Okay.
But you meant Bodhidharma? Alan Watts?
Yeah.
Correct. True. I take it back.
So, simplified prisoner dilemma. 2, people always act the same way, and that's their identity. 3, there's telltale signs of people's identity that can be identified at a cost. So it's the cost of scrutiny. So it what was it? Oh, it was like a little blushing in the face or something, right? And to identify if a person was a defector, you had to pay 1 unit, let's say, to be able to detect that. And the question is, when is it worth it to pay that unit? Because if you don't pay and they defect and you're a cooperator and you cooperate, then you lose and defectors win.
Yeah. So is that unit, because here in the simplified version, the unit that you get from it, which is supposedly
it's
money,
the same one you pay, right?
Yeah, it's the same one you pay. But I guess in real life,
time.
It must be time, right? Because it's like running the background check.
Yeah.
On the new employee. It's like, okay, you could have hired 2 employees for this time, but you actually wasted 50% more time, or I don't know, 30% more time on this employee to make sure he's not a defector but a cooperator. Was it worth it? And then we're talking about how many cooperators there are in society and stuff like that. So it does make sense. And I guess just on a more interpersonal level, wouldn't it be just cognitive resources? But I'm not sure how it would translate in the same. I guess, or maybe finding a relationship or finding a friendship, what you would get is kind of this emotional payoff, or I don't know, interpersonal relationship payoff, and what it would cost you is more scrutiny. So like, I don't know, going on 4 more dates before making any commitments or something, because you're an untrustworthy person because there are more defectors in society. Is that right? Like, because you have to convert the unit that you're paying for the same unit you're getting for the model to kind of make sense in your head, correct?
I guess it's like to simplify it, but it could also be 2 different units, and just the cost of scrutiny is always just time.
Wait, did you say units or Unix?
The Unix of time and the...
What is that? Is that like a bull or something?
Unique.
We'll check it out afterwards.
No, it's like when you're not like everybody else.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah.
Yeah, and time is money.
Go on.
Money is the root of all evil.
Also, hey, such a cultured guy, right? Like quoting Hume, he's like a statistician. What is it? Economic
professor of
guy,
economics,
writing about psychology.
Yeah.
And kind of, what is it? Not epidemiology, but kind of societal. Well, I guess the economical people do that. and then quoting philosophers on the way there, because he quoted Hume and whatnot. So okay. Now,
okay, well, I guess
supposedly do you want to do the two big theories about these, like the reputation?
the big two.
Yeah, the reputation, and I forgot the term, but it's I don't know. It felt like the same thing to me, but and then the stuffs.
Okay, yeah. So there are two pathways through which emotions may have evolved, or things that emotions may have affected. I wonder how he calls them, but so one of them is reputation. So having a reputation for an emotional predisposition. So if you have a reputation for being angry, the specific commitment problems that have to do with and can be solved by anger are going to be solved instantly. So,
because once again, it's not necessarily the future of you acting angrily that matters. It's how people perceive you in the moment, because that's kind of where the action takes place, but it's not where you can necessarily display what your anger means. Those are it's the characteristic of the commitment problem. Like you can't guarantee the outcome of a marriage when you sign the contract of the marriage, in a way, right?
Honestly, it's still not so hazy, but it's still a bit hazy in my mind that all these things are commitment problems. And I have to remind myself, like when you just said marriage, I have to remind myself in what way a marriage is a commitment problem.
Yeah, in the sense that if one person is out there defecting, and the other isn't, one profits more and the other loses. And
I guess.
It also depends on what level. Again, like if you're out there plotting with an attorney of how to, like for years, you already know you want to leave the person and plotting how you're going to like entrap them, or I don't know if that's the term, to get a favorable divorce and like put them in situations where it looks like they cheated, and then in the court of law is going to look like unfaithfulness and you're going to get more out of marriage. Like all of these things, they could happen, or one person gets 0, the other person gets 20. And all that you have, like at the moment of signing the contract of marriage, all that you have to prevent that is essentially, well, either your reputation or your signs. That's the other theory, I guess. Or your kind of physiological, or not necessarily physiological, but your signs that you are a person who would not do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, whatever honesty looks like on a face.
Yeah. Okay. I think I have this thing written down. I think it's going to be interesting, and I think it's going to be interesting with you also. So we'll get to the 2 ways emotions may have affected humans, and then the 3 characteristics of signs of emotions.
Yeah.
But he talks also for like a chapter or 2 about impulse control and the matching law. I think the matching law shouldn't be called the matching law. It's literally just like decision making, right? The matching law is referring to how heavily are the scales weighed on both sides, and which side wins. So if you have a decision to make, are there more pros on one side? On which side are there more pros?
Is that it? Because I thought it was just about the temporality of reward, kind of.
Well, he talks about the matching law in that context. The reward weighs on one of the 2 sides, and it is an important factor how far the reward is. So something that psychological research finds, thank God for psychological research.
I love it.
Is that there's a time trade-off in a sort of exponential law way.
You got it, man.
Where rewards that are close seem much less salient and attractive than rewards that are far away. So, for example,
what?
If you
isn't the opposite?
Rewards that are close
are much more attractive.
are much more attractive. Is that
you
what I
said?
said?
Yeah, you said the opposite.
Okay, so rewards that are close are much more salient and attractive than rewards that are far away.
Okay.
Yeah. So if I offer you, maybe not you specifically, maybe you're the god of self-control, but
Yeah. So a bird in the hand versus two in the bush, right?
every time a bird in the hand. So if I offer you $100 today and say, okay, you can either take this $100 today or get 120 in a month. Most people take the $100 today.
I mean, the example given of the book was in 3 days, and people still
Yeah.
take the $100.
Yeah. I guess it's like it's a feature of the uncertainty of life and stuff like that, and it's just how our psychological mechanisms are built, where things that are close seem more salient. But
Yeah, but the example I had in mind is you have a good amount of berries that you just collected upon a new bush.
of course, the example you had in mind involves berries from a bush.
Yeah. And then, you're still new to this whole, things going bad thing. So you only eat half the berries and you leave them for, I don't know, the next few days. Well, in 3 days, you revisit those berries when, new food isn't coming in and they've gone bad.
Yeah, but paper is non-perishable.
I understand. But the evolutionary mechanism behind this
Right. Okay.
wanting of rewards now makes sense. And that's how he explains it, right? Everyone these days is very much rewarded by, how do you call it? What's the term for that? Not,
Instant gratification.
yeah, but the opposite of that, delayed gratification, right? And the reason for that is because all our immediate needs are pretty much met. But the reason it's so hard for delayed gratification to thrive is because our evolutionary mechanisms are telling us, eat now, right? Like, this is why people get fat, because we have access to cake. And 1,000 years ago, as I literally said in another podcast, if you encountered in nature a fruit with the same caloric, or macronutrient profile as cake, with the fat and sugar that it gives you ready at hand, it would be very much profitable for you to eat every single fruit on that tree, right? Whereas today, delayed gratification is actually much more rewarded in the long term, obviously. And that is because our immediate needs are already pretty much met.
Yeah, so our instincts are malattuned. Is that a thing?
Hey, it is now, man.
Our material reality. And that's probably the most
Takeaway.
obnoxious sentence I'll ever say.
Yeah, but it's also the big takeaway.
The big takeaway, yeah. And so he goes through 3 examples, which, okay, I guess these are commitment problems. I don't know what commitment problems are anymore. So
It's just a thing that can be settled now.
yeah. And goes through how feelings solve them. So earlier, an example that we didn't mention, but he goes through as an example of commitment problems is, let's say you're a person that found themselves in.
Let's say you're a person.
Okay, for
Step
1, you're a person. 2, yeah, there's another person.
Right.
3, you're in a business deal together, and let's say we're working on some business deal, and I have the option to cheat you, and that would be profitable for me. I would get money, but I would also get found out probably, or I have the risk at least of being found out in the future. And so the way the matching law operates for me, this is the way I understand it, is right now I have to make this decision. Do I cheat you or do I not cheat you? On one side, there's a bunch of money now. And then on the other side, there's, I'll get a bad reputation in the future. And that seems very, especially, considering how instant gratification is much more valued.
It's very distant and uncertain.
Distant, uncertain. Maybe I won't get found out, right?
Yeah.
And nothing will happen. But that's the decision I need to make. I need to make the decision of not cheating. And so the matching law sort of doesn't support that right now with only material considerations. That's the point. So I have this money here right now, which is weighing very heavily on the side of I should cheat him. And then on the other side, there's like a bad reputation I may get that may lose me some money later because other people won't want to work with me. And then the solution of the human to this is the feeling of guilt, which comes out and rebalances the thing so that the weight is higher on the let's not cheat side. So an extreme feeling of guilt stops me from cheating you and keeps me on the good side of the law and of God.
Which is pretty much what I said in my book as well. for those who understood.
For the record. For those that read the manuscript that no one read.
No, but it's what I said. It's, as he says, reason is just part of the argument. Emotions are the other side, and a combination of the two lead to the optimal outcome. Anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's no mystery.
It's the same in marriage. You're in the marriage, you have the decision of having an affair now. But then if you do, you have consequences later that are not enjoyable. And he says love helps here. So the fact that you love someone is going to make you not cheat on them and also not get the consequences later. So just weighing on the side of not cheating. And
importantly, it doesn't cancel out the
bad consequences of cheating in the future.
No, it doesn't cancel out the attractiveness of the prospect of cheating. It's now a new variable in the equation that weighs on the other side. That still remains salient, right? Yeah, it's just part of the calculation now of, oh, but I do love this person, so what will be my ultimate behavior? And this is where it comes in. So again, as we recall, the name of the book is the adaptive role of emotion.
Okay, yeah.
The subtitle.
The strategic role of emotion.
Yeah, the strategic role of emotion. So now, for someone who thinks that maybe reason is for someone who hasn't really thought things through and thinks that reason is the optimal way to act, this is a book kind of against that.
Yeah, and I like this last example. The last example is about revenge. And so in this case, you have someone that wronged you and you have the option of, let's say, beating them up right now. And the two things weighing on either side is, if I beat them up, I'll have dire consequences now. I'll probably go to prison. And then on the other side is my reputation suffers. And so my future interactions with people, I may be like less respected and people are going to see me in a certain way.
Clearly, this is not an honor culture because it would be the opposite about reputation and honor culture.
What would it be?
You would get more reputation.
By not getting revenge?
No, by getting revenge. Oh, okay, that's what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Not getting revenge.
What? Not getting revenge
would hurt your
reputation. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't know you switched. No, you switched sides.
Oh, yeah, I did switch sides. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so
on one side of the decision, you retaliate, get bad consequences now, and have a good reputation so that people won't mess with you in the future. On the other side of the decision, it's you don't retaliate, you don't get the consequences now, but your reputation suffers and people respect you less, honor you less. And so presumably the decision to make is to get revenge right now so that to help your reputation. And so anger helps with that. So you get angry and you seek revenge to help your reputation, despite the fact that the consequences which are present and are right here are very salient and would win if there was no anger, right? And so people take revenge because there's that anger that helps them weigh on the side of helping my reputation and seeking revenge now. Very good point. Very good point. And this is why we were saying, I think this is why Tamler wrote a whole book about the role of kind of revenge. What is it? Honor? Revenge? Why honor matters? Is that it?
Why honor matters?
Why honor matters? And we were so against the idea that revenge matters because we were both approaching it rationally, right?
Well, you're sort of the revenge hater, but
Yeah, I definitely am.
so
definitely
not we.
I think it depends. But this has definitely introduced some nuance. Now, so a mission for the rest of the book is, as he will say, he will argue that emotions probably evolved as a combination of the two theories of the development of emotion. So on one side there's reputation, on the other side there's kind of what I call
Sincere manner.
Yeah, sincere manner, but I'll just call them like these recognizable signs of these good emotions. So yeah, these good emotions. So for example, when going into marriage, it would be something like honor and loyalty. Well, I don't know about honor, but whatever, justice and loyalty. So he will say, he showed both sides, and then he's going to argue that kind of a combination of both of them is the case. But he also will argue that it's definitely not only one of them. But which one?
It's definitely not only
Sincere manner?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so it's definitely not only the kind of the what I call the physiological signs thing. So, in other words, reputation is definitely involved in this as well.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to get to the 3 factors?
Yeah.
This is just an interesting thing to know about how evolution works as well. But this is about only passive signs, right?
Well, one of them applies only to passive signs.
Yeah, so a passive sign could be...
A passive sign of an emotional predisposition is blushing when you get embarrassed. And that means you're predisposed for embarrassment or shyness, stuff like that. And an active sign is...
I guess saying I am embarrassed.
Yeah, the actions you demonstrate, right?
Yeah.
How you act in a situation that you would be expected to... That would be expected to elicit a certain emotion.
Again, there's the example of the detective whose, I don't know, friend or wife has been killed, and he has to interrogate a mob underling, and he has to display that he is ready to not make a rational choice by, getting involved with the mafia.
Independently of the law.
Yeah.
The thing is...
Exactly. So he's on a personal mission, right?
That person needs to know that he's ready to kill...
The mafia guy, right? So he goes to him. Now, the author says it's... The mafia guy knows it's not rational for the detective to risk, first of all, I'm guessing his career. Second of all, retaliation from the mafia by hurting him. But he needs information out of the mafia guy about the death of his wife, for example. So again, this is a commitment problem in the sense that something has to happen now that will have incidents on the future. And the rational choice for the detective is to not do anything aggressive to the mafia guy in the future. So everything is going to be in that threat he's going to make. So what he does is he shows him that he's not a rational person by, I don't know, it was a cool scene, but smashing his car window. And that way he doesn't have to just say,
I'm ready to kill you.
Yeah, like, I'm going to kill you if you don't give me this information. And also, this is something else I've been saying for years. If you have to say it, you don't display it. That's the solution to every commitment problem is to display it. You have to be that thing. And again, in the sincere manner theory, maybe reputation theory, one of the things is, for example, tipping in a distant city where no one knows that you might do the immoral thing of not tipping, right? So American. It's profitable for you to tip just because it's going to enforce the person that you are and the person that you know you are, and it's going to be more obvious on you. Like people are going to read on you that you're a person who does this always, right? And that's obviously like that's the theory of, okay, if our repeated honesty, and this is what Aristotle was saying, right? You are what you repeatedly do. If our repeated honesty, despite no one being able to find out, is what makes us appear sincere and through these like recognizable signs of virtue, right? When I'm saying some people just are oozing of virtue, they're probably out there doing virtuous stuff all the time, right? It's probably the result of them doing that. And I can definitely imagine, our professor, the virtue oozer, dipping in distant cities. Anyway, I kind of got off track. Where was I?
So the three properties of signals between adversaries.
Yeah. All three of which apply to passive ones and two of which apply to...
Yeah. The first one is the costly to fake principle. So for a signal that you give to your adversary to be significant, to carry any sort of weight, it has to be costly to fake, right? So if you could just...
Yeah, like fake a blush. Just like flex your face when you're lying to make it appear as though you're blushing.
Yeah, or I don't know, like if standing on your tippy toes made you appear bigger and like that's
scarier to other men.
Scarier to someone you're going to fight, then
being tall wouldn't be that much of an advantage.
Right.
Or that much of a deterrent.
To the other person fighting you.
Within the commitment problem framework of, right now I'm just deciding if we're going to fight. What actually happens within the fight is a mystery. Which is also why so many young men choose to go to the gym and appear big instead of learning how to fight, which is actually the thing that would get them ahead in a rational bout of, right? Like, okay, if this is an aggressive world and,
I just don't think that's the rationale. Like,
yeah, it definitely is.
It definitely is not.
Evolutionarily, they just want to appear scarier because the solution to the commitment problem is the threat. It's not the actual outcome, or it's not the projected outcome.
I'd be surprised if the majority of people that go to the gym go because they want to win fights.
I would say the majority of the young men who go to the gym and want to appear the biggest they want to be is in a way, not kind of explicitly like, hey, I'm trying to solve the commitment problem, but in a way, because this is how the world works. And when you see, is that what it was? The biggest guy in the bar talking to the woman. You don't go up to that woman. What is it?
I don't remember that part.
I feel like I read it in somewhere else, but I forgot. Anyway, if you look big and scary, it's a deterrent for other people not to confront you. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean, like, we saw Mighty Mouse, 130 pounds, winning against a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt who was 260 pounds. Did you see that?
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not like Mighty Mouse is also short. Like, it's not like he's not fit.
What does that mean? No, all I'm saying is, if you revert us to the jungle, right? The rule of the jungle, right? Where most of our brains in history evolved. The person who is actually more dangerous is the one who knows how to win fights. And the people who know how to win fights are fighters, not the people who appear the biggest. Yeah, muscles do not matter in the fight in that sense. It matters if both are at zero experience and one is 140 pounds and the other is 200. But as soon as there's more experience in fighting in one of them, the muscle argument kind of goes away. But that is actually the kind of the prenuptial agreement side of things in terms of fighting skill. What actually matters is the deterrent, or in the marriage example, it would be the honor, right? So your perceived honor. So if you blush when you lie, or if you are, built as an absolute brick house, that's all that you need to solve the commitment problem. Okay, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, and the example that he goes through these 3 points with is toads croaking, and the
larger toads having deeper, larger vocal cords and a deeper croak. And if small toads could just imitate those deep croaks, then it wouldn't be very advantageous evolutionarily to be bigger. So what I was saying with the fighting thing is that actually people are making the optimal choice, not the rational choice. The rational choice is to learn how to fight and to actually be a more dangerous person than the person who might fight you. But they're using the optimal choice of appearing as though they're more dangerous by building muscle. You get it?
I get it.
Okay. Is that kind of it for the first point?
Yes.
Again, yeah. So if it weren't costly to fake, or
it wouldn't carry any information. If it was as simple as me saying, "Hello, I am honest."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's the I am honest. The point is that is not a sign with valuable information that you give to the other person, to your adversary. Point number 2. The signs often come about for reasons other than signaling. So they come about sort of randomly, as evolution tends to do. So I guess in the toad example, it would just be the fact that something that came with a bigger size for toads is, incidentally, larger vocal cords, and as a result of that, deeper croaks. But sort of evolutionarily, it's not that
bigger toads
specifically
developed larger vocal cords to appear scarier.
Yeah, right.
That's not what had happened.
It's not. I think the best way to put it is, it's not the toads with the biggest, with the deepest croaks, tongue twisters all around. It's not the toads with the deepest croaks that survive evolutionarily. It's just the biggest toads, and they also have deeper croaks.
Yeah. Yep.
And this applies only to passive signs, because active signs, I mean, they don't come about randomly. You do them. They're active. And 3 is the full disclosure principle, by which all but the worst at something must reveal their abilities.
This is actually really interesting.
Really interesting. Yeah, I like this part. And so an example you could go to is, like, well, let's stay with the toads. Why would toads that are, let's say, in the middle of the distribution, like mid deep croak, why would they croak at all? That reveals that they're less, that their croak is less deep. Yeah, less. I mean, exactly average, or like even less than average, or whatever. Well, the reason for that is because if, let's say, we put an arbitrary cutoff at, people, toads above the 80th percentile will croak because it's advantageous for them. It's like, I'm big, here I am, I'm going to compete. And toads below the 80th percentile would not croak. Then the interesting thing would happen at percentiles, 81, 79, because the 81st percentile would croak, and then the 79th would be left without. Well, I guess the point of croaking is mating, right? And being attractive to potential mates.
No.
Is it fighting?
Here the point is just to signal to the other male that there's someone scary around when approaching a female. So ultimately,
mating.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
But you're not croaking to the female. You're croaking to the other males around.
Yeah. So 79 would be a really big disadvantage, especially considering that, like they're pretty much there, right? They're pretty much at the 81st percentile. And so the thing that would happen is that the 79th percentile that doesn't croak because they're under that cutoff would be virtually like in all respects, because they didn't croak, the same as like a second percentile croaker in terms of highness of croak. And that's really disadvantageous for the 79th percentile. So the 79th percentile would start to croak because even though they're less intimidating and would win less often than the 90th percentile, they still have to display what they have because otherwise they'd be considered the same as the weakest toads.
Yeah. So whenever you're doing a behavior characteristic of a certain distribution that is this like homogeneous throughout that distribution. So for example, if it was a strategy not to croak, to not reveal that you're smaller, you're always going to be assumed to be at the bottom of that distribution. So whatever cutoff you want to take for toads who decide not to croak, it's the upper half of that distribution is disadvantaged because they're going to be assumed to be below average in that distribution. Is that fair? So the example was also taken for women who are married or planning to get children, because when employers employ them, they want to know how soon or if these women are going to take their maternity leave, because it's a big investment to they're going to lose money on it, right? And so there were laws passed against asking the question from the employer side about these things, like, are you married or are you going to have children soon? But women who aren't going to do either of those things now volunteer this information because it puts them ahead of competition. Women who actually, are just following the law and they're not seeing it because they're actually going to get married soon or have children soon. So now, even the women who just want to respect the law and aren't even planning on having children or getting married have to volunteer this information. Otherwise, they're always going to be assumed to be below average within that distribution, aka, well, if you're not volunteering the information, you're probably going to get married soon, therefore you'll have less chances of being employed.
Yeah. I remember vividly reading that passage. Did he get to like a solution? Was it instantiated that you can't talk about it?
He honestly, he said exactly what I was thinking, and he said, you have to pass a law prohibiting the women to talk about it, which isn't really realistic. It's not realistic.
What do you mean it's not realistic? I mean,
you can't. It's their personal information. If they want to volunteer, you can't really take that away from them,
I guess. The same way you can stop the employer from asking that question, you can stop the person from saying that.
No, I don't really see it. I think it's a different circumstance. Anyway, I just want to remind us of something. I forget where this was in the context. It's something I really liked. It's the bad outcome, therefore bad decision fallacy. And this is so big. Like, everyone falls for this always, especially the consequentialists that consider, actual outcomes instead of prospective outcomes. Is that it?
Yeah.
So what that is simply, let's say there are 999 white balls and one red ball in a sack of balls. Someone offers you a gamble, if you pick a white ball, you get $100, and if you pick the red ball, you get minus $1.
You have to give them $1.
Yeah, you have to give them $1. So then you rummage through the balls, you pick the red one
out of the sack.
Yeah, and you pick the red one, and you have to give the person $1. And now you're like, it was such a bad decision to fall for this gamble, when it just statistically absolutely wasn't. And you are kind of retroactively painting yourself as a bad decision maker because of the statistically improbable thing that happened. But, you always have to, remain temporally neutral to the statistics of it.
Right.
Is that fair?
Yeah, yeah.
I forget where he mentions this, but I really like this because a lot of people fall for this. Like, you approach it rationally, you made a pros and cons list, you decide something, and then when it doesn't work out, you're like, you start thinking counterfactuals. You're thinking, if only I could go back. No. You made the right decision. It's just a new factor appeared. And again, if we're talking about, you didn't consider enough factors, you didn't spend enough time planning, you didn't actually weigh the pros and cons the correct way, sure, we can learn something from it. But in the white ball, red ball gamble, that's not the case. Yeah. I forget where that enters the conversation. Okay, I'm pretty satisfied. How about you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, well, we're going to hope the audio worked out for this one. Thank you for joining us on our tropical adventure. Where do we... So, figured it out rating. Did we just leave it for next week?
Sure. Yeah.
Let's do it. I'll put a question mark this time.
Already a miracle that we remembered to do it here, so...
Oh, yeah, fair enough. So, part 2 is going to come next week. We're going to finish the book. We're going to get back to our non-tropical ways. The black shirts are going to be back for the fans who are wondering.
Keep asking for it.
Who keep asking for it. And
thank you to our fan.
Thanks a lot for listening. We've been Thinkin Bros. Go to thinkinbros.com for more information, or contact us at thinkinbros@gmail.com, or go to our website to read my blog, please. And I've been Chris this week.
Alex, I'll see you next time.